Good morning, America. Welcome to December. Lovely morning, nice and comfy. Not too cold, not too hot. Clear blue sky. And breakfast of green chilies and eggs and whatnot, whatever, so forth and so on. So welcome to number 6 of Breakfast with the Epic Beard and Dave. Let's turn it around. Our title for today's story is Welcome to Our New America. As many of you are aware, through the internet and through Facebook and through the media, a few days ago, a 7-year-old Guatemalan girl passed away while in custody with the Border Patrol. She passed away from what apparently is dehydration and shock. Terrible thing. But apparently it's become a big enough media story, and for some of the outlets, and especially some of those on Facebook, that seem to enjoy this. I mean, I really do. I really believe that they really get off on this shit. They're upset because, for what the Border Patrol did. Well, the girl had apparently gone several days without food or water. And she was only 7 years old. After being taken into custody, and I believe through processing, taken in custody with her father, it was determined, nobody determined anything because apparently they didn't think there was anything wrong with her. But after 8 hours, she started to go into shock and have seizures, and so they, believe it or not, who knew, the Border Patrol, the authorities, airlifted her to a local hospital, where she didn't survive. Her heart stopped. That's just sad, right? But what really grinds my gears, yanks my chain, really gets me going is, especially on Facebook, the response by some so-called Americans. One in particular, I forget what her name is. She's a nurse. She's a friend of Craig Rasmussen's. She wants her America back. And I want to know which America that is. I really do. Is it the America that doesn't have a border, that allows anyone to come and go as it pleases? That there's no rule of law? There's no due process. All you have to do is accuse. She wants one that's more feeling and more kind and generous. Well, trust me, I think when the Border Patrol, they turned themselves in. 100 and some of them turned themselves in after they crossed the border. 163 or something like that. And they, do you think they just stuck them in a pen? You don't think they gave a quick once-over and offered them food and water? To, I guess there was a communications problem between the father, their Guatemalan, and their, they don't speak actually Spanish, they speak another language, more native to Guatemala. And, but I'm sure that there was probably there were major attempts at communication, but apparently from what they say, the father said that there was no need to, there's no medical problems with his daughter. And, Yet here we are. I don't know how to approach this. This is so fucked up. This is so sick. You know? That people are this way and can be this way. Yeah. It seems like, from what I'm getting from CNN and some of the other articles I've read, that apparently, and especially from the post of Craig Rasmussen, some of the people that have posted in there, that this is all our government's fault, and this is all Trump's fault, and this is that basically, you know, to coin a phrase, he probably killed her, and yet we not once look at the fact that what the parents did or didn't do. And then you're going to give me all their poor and whatever. Well, apparently those marching up from Honduras and Guatemala and whatever in the Great Caravan were given food and clothing and water and some supplies. And from what news is coming out of there, from I'm going to say more reliable sources because it's not really the mainstream media. There is a lot of disease and a lot of other problems in the refugee camps on the Mexican side of the border. And of course, let's not discount the violence extended by these so-called immigrants wanting sanctuary and escape from persecution. The violence they acted out on American Border Patrol agents. Apparently one of those guys is dead. So, you know, you tell me, what kind of America do you want? Do you even want an America? Really? You know? This is just, you know, had I or any of my friends or whatever done something like that girl's father, we'd be in jail for abuse. But I was only trying to get her to a safe spot. Yeah, well, you know, you got to feed him and water him, you know. So, I will point out something, because this has happened a few days ago, and I've been reading and I want to make sure that I have some facts straight and in order. And one of the points I wanted to make is during the Second World War, when U.S. troops stumbled across the camps and found the living skeletons, the dying skeletons, they were just struck, and it was so awful and so heinous and so hideous a sight that General Eisenhower ordered everybody in the European theater that they had to come and visit as witnesses, to say that, you know, when people start talking about it, that they said, yeah, I was a clerk in London and we were ordered to go there, and I'm telling you that you could smell it miles away before you got there. The stench of death. But, you know, being good Americans, boys, and especially, I'm sure, many of the other Europeans, the English and whatever that were moving with us, the other allies, offered, as soon as they came across them and saw their condition, they offered them food and water and gave them drink, and did everything can to kind of comfort them, you know, immediately. And I was reading something about this once, and that's what made me look it up, that as a result of U.S. soldiers giving up some of their rations and letting them drink and whatever, they actually killed some of them. It caused them to expire, and because of the shock on the body from not having eaten in such a long time. And people like that will sometimes, they will just immediately starts to gorge, which is not healthy and which is not safe. And they needed a recommendation made by an Army surgeon who happened to be very close to the problem, and immediately brought in when one of the camps was discovered. Started to inform the commanding general or whatever that they needed to stop feeding immediately, and they needed to stop feeding immediately, and they needed to just give them a little water and give them a little this, and we need to get doctors and medical crews in here to start helping them, because they needed to build their bodies back up slowly. They needed the shock would have been too much for eating like a ham sandwich or whatever. They needed to be put on liquid diets and slowly brought back to a physical condition that could handle solid food. And that would be in the safe and best way. And once the Army started to react, and the medical teams were poured in from all over, all over the back areas and all over England and whatnot. They were brought up, and the people stopped dying as fast. These people were sick, very diseased, but their bodies were ravaged by starvation and dehydration. Now, I'm sure this little 7-year-old girl was nothing like what you saw in pictures of a Holocaust. For a few days, I don't know how much body mass you will lose, but enough if it's obvious that, but who knows, maybe she was given something that she couldn't process right away because of a lack of food in her background. My point is how, from what I'm reading and the way the story seems to be presented, this is all the government's fault for applying the law and obeying the law and protecting the border. And this poor girl is a victim. And you want to blame some of our government? Why not past presidents and past policies that seem to, we'll do this, we'll let them, and the policies of under Obama and some of the others that these guys turned themselves in, so they wrote them a ticket, should appear in court in 2 weeks here, and that was the last they saw of them. They blended right into the country. Even though somebody has suffered a great deal because of it, if a mother and a father drag their children across the Sonoran Desert, and which is one of the harshest environments around, especially in northern America, they should be treated as criminals, not just for breaking into our country, but for what they did to their children. They shouldn't have had to do that. They shouldn't have to endure what they're enduring, probably in their home country. But you shouldn't have to force a child or put a child through what they did there, because apparently, that does kill. I think it's very sad. I think it's sad that we have a mentality now in this country that immediately something like this happens and it's used and played on to come down on the current administration for wanting to impose a law, to bring back the order of law, the rule of law, which our country is based on, which is your America. We do a lot of wonderful things around the world. We have a history of doing great things around the world and getting spit on. I'll give you a classic example. The most current example is Mogadishu. When it first happened, I thought Bush was just doing something to lay on Clinton's desk. And don't get me wrong, I hated Clinton right from the get-go. But I thought it was a political ploy or a tactic because he was a one-term president. But over time, I've seen the humanity that the president tried to use the resources of the United States to help a country and a people that were starving to death, that were victims of greedy, evil men. And the UN wasn't doing anything about it, and the United States was going to come in and help. And they were greeted with open arms for about 14, 15 minutes, and then it was like, get the fuck out. You're an invader. You know? We've made a lot of mistakes. Name a country that hasn't. You know? And I don't believe America is an imperialist, colonizing country. I believe because we're a government of the people, that the people like sending some of these guys in to help, to stop ruthless and brutal people, to bring about and to help foster a better way of life for these people in foreign countries, especially in South America or the southern latitudes. But the world looks at us as evil. You know, I even heard a British reporter misquote the Constitution when answering a question, when having an interview, and in response to her interviewer's statement, you know. And I believe he made a comment about, you know, in his country it's this way, and in the United States it's better, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, you know, the Constitution has this statement, and the funny thing was, and made this statement, the statement was something about voting or whatever. And to be honest with you, the U.S. Constitution doesn't really have much on voting, who can or who cannot, other than I think you had to be 21 years old to vote in a national election. Voting rights were always held under state constitutions. That's the way the U.S. Constitution is written. So the world now studies our Constitution, finds little gaps to misquote or to use against us to make not only us in that but us in that document completely evil and wrong and out of line. It's I can't believe how sad and disgusting that is. You know, the United States has done a lot of great things for people. You know, if you want to learn more about some of this, foreign diplomacy, I recommend a book to you. It was made into a movie. The movie is fictional, partly fictional, based on true facts or true events. But it's, you know, completely, you know, artistic, whatever. But it's called A Few Good Men. And the book is very interesting because a few years ago the CIA actually opened up its files, opened up its archives, and invited this researcher to come in and write a book on the history of the CIA from its founding up into the 70s. And it was John F. Kennedy who said, you know, how could some of the smartest men in this country be so dumb? But my point is, and what I'm really trying to get at is, when you read about it and when you learn about them and whatever, you will discover something very, very interesting. They were all Democrats. They were all Democrats. They were all loyal, patriotic Democrats. And they, with good intentions. And we understand what good intentions means. You know, the road to hell is paved with. And in trying to counter an aggressive Soviet international policy of nonviolent world domination, the United States entered a the Cold War, and which encompassed a lot of the CIA. And the CIA's original mission was what was called rollback. They wanted to push the Soviet Union out of Eastern Europe and back across their own borders. They wanted them out of Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, a lot of East Germany. They wanted to reunite Germany, but because of World War I, they also wanted to keep a little bit of a thumb on them. But they turned around and they needed to do this, and they needed information on Russia, and they needed intel and a lot of other stuff, and they needed something and someone who would play the game the Russian way. Had to level the playing field, and to do that, you had to play Russian football, and with a little bit of your own aim. And it's really not a cool history, really. At times, the CIA made a lot of mistakes. Interesting thing about intelligence and especially like the military is in the same book, that when you are successful and your plan works, everyone cheers. And if you make a mistake or something goes wrong, the mob, the people, want to chop you into little bits. And here we come full circle. I don't think U.S. Customs Enforcement, the Border Patrol, and those people did anything wrong. I think they did their job. And unfortunately, because of it, a young girl had been put in a situation which apparently she probably couldn't recover from. And whether the parent was deceitful or just didn't understand, it doesn't matter. In the end, it really doesn't matter. The young child lost her life. But I don't blame the Border Patrol. I don't blame Trump. I don't blame the U.S. government. I do blame those who really want an open border. I tried to allude to this earlier, and I got off target. You can blame those that have sat and done nothing or done very little, and given the impression that all you had to do was just get across the border and you were scot-free. I read that in a newspaper, in a Newsweek article or a Time article, that that after interviewing many of them, that the pursuing or persuading as a current means of thinking for those that were illegally crossing the borders, once you got a mile or more inside the United States, you were safe. You made it. Sure, you had a long way more to go. You had to go along more. Yes, there was more to go. And you had a long way in which to go. But basically, you didn't have to worry about getting caught or getting deported or whatever. Once you're in, you're in. And then, of course, we, since Reagan, and that was one of Reagan's follies and big mistakes, was amnesty. It told the world, it told many people outside the United States is all you have to do is get in, and once you're here, you can apply for amnesty and you're going to be safe. Basically, we don't really have a border. We really don't enforce it. We talk about it, and we've been talking about this since I was a kid, since I was a little kid, and God knows how many years before that. Okay, it's not a new subject. Think about it. I'm 62 years old. In my entire life, my parents, my grandparents, and so many others have been discussing illegal immigration. And you want to blame it all on the southern border. This is a bigger problem than just the southern border. You really want to dig into it, dig into it. You really want to get dirty on it. Because this is a big problem in our country. We spend so much money in other countries other than, southern, South American countries. We go to Africa and so many other places where there's extreme poverty and a hard life, and we spend the money to find that when people come to us and apply and whatever, they want to do what they can for their country. So we bring them here, we send them to medical school, we make engineers out of them, so they can bring water and sewage, clean water, and sewage disposal, and better farming methods and irrigation, and all around do what they can to help produce more food and to produce healthier people. And then we bring some of them come in and learn politics and whatnot, or political study, to try and help, their people and govern their people to a better, more prosperous life. We bring industrial, we bring in manufacturing. We do what we can to help, the economies of these countries. And so many times there are people that came to us and said, yeah, I want to do this. I want to help my people. They come here and they go to college for maybe a semester, if that. Sometimes longer. Sometimes they go a couple of years. But they learn. They get some, whatever it takes to learn what's going on and how to get through it. And then they just like when it's time to renew their visa or whatnot. They've disappeared. They're gone. They're almost untraceable. And they disappear into the fabric of America and become a part of it. But it doesn't mean that they become Americans. And I'm not talking about becoming a citizen. I'm talking about becoming an American. And I'll always fight for that. I will always fight and agree with Theodore Roosevelt when it comes to, you want to come here? Fine, you're more than welcome. We could probably use what you got. If not, you're probably going to have some kids, and they can have the opportunity to improve not just your life, but to improve their own lives and become part of the fabric of America. But I don't know. Really got to get inside some of these people's heads. And these people are not from South America. They're from Africa, and they're from Asian countries, and they're just from all around. It's effed up. Anyways, this has been Breakfast with the Epic Beard and Dave, number 6. This is the new America, people. We're just going to whine and complain and not even look at. I don't even think half the people that I saw on that actually even read the article.
Yeah, we went a little further up that one.
It's funny, there are people that, especially Craig Rasmussen, I've done it many, many times, and I keep posting. I don't say anything, I just post the quote of Goebbels, that if you tell the lie loud enough and long enough, the people will come to believe it. And when the state can support it long enough, it'll become fact. And I always get a big thumbs up from them, and I don't think they get it. I'm posting it to them, and about them, because they're the enemy of the country. They're the enemy of the people. The enemy of the states. And in a way, if that's what media is today, then that's what media is today. It's just people pushing along yellow journalism, sensationalism, propaganda, to miseducate, to to misdirect, to tear down a place that is giving them so much. Trust me, they're not going to go down there. They're not going to go and contribute. You know, they might give a couple of bucks here and there, but they're not going to get off their ass and go down there and do what they can. They're not going to be too politically active. They're going to actually just mouth off on Facebook, and that's it. I don't know. Maybe that's what I'm trying to do with this page. I don't know. Anyways, y'all have fun. And now, Beard, just say finish. 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 Danish. Swedish. Finish. Finish. Come on, finish. I'm hitting the finish button, or the Danish button, or the Swedish button.